Received a letter from ACI Debt Collectors or even had them knock on your door? There are few things that will rob you of sleep and push stress levels up like a debt collector chasing you for money. Today we'll tackle this by looking at 5 of the most important things you need to know when dealing with ACI Debt Collectors. Just to be clear, I don't give financial advice, I'm just making sure that you have access to the information that you need to make informed decisions. So number 1, are ACI debt collectors legitimate? If you don't recognise the company name, it might be that they've purchased your debt or that they're a debt collector collecting on behalf of another company. I can confirm that ACI Debt Collectors is a UK registered company. Whilst there are a bunch of scams out there when it comes to debt collectors, I'm afraid this is unlikely to be a scam. However, you should never pay unless you are certain that the debt is yours. You're well within your rights to ask ACI debt collectors to provide proof that the debt is yours. So what happens if you ignore ACI debt collectors? Well, your problem could escalate and become very serious. ACI debt collectors does have the right to take court action against you. If you were to ignore court letters, then you could end up with a county court judgment. A county court judgment could have a major impact on your credit score and your chances of borrowing money in the future. If you do get a CCJ and you still don't pay this, then that could ultimately result in bailiffs coming to your home to take your valuable items or even your car. There's a big difference between having a debt collector like ACI Debt Collectors chasing you and having bailiffs come to your home. I can't urge you enough that now is the time to take action on your debts while there's still options available to you. So please don't ignore ACI Debt Collectors, and we'll get to what you can do instead later in the video. So what are the rules that ACI debt collectors have to follow? Well, despite being legally appointed to collect your debt or outright owning your debt, there are several things that ACI debt collectors cannot do when it comes to collecting debts. Knowing what ACI debt collectors can and can't do will make you feel more comfortable and more confident when dealing with them. They are not allowed to visit you at your place of work without you giving them specific permission to do so. Before this rule was put in place, some debt collectors would show up when you're working and try to make things awkward as a way of pressurizing you into paying. On a similar note, they're not allowed to speak to your neighbours, friends, or family about your debt. Again, this is to try and stop them from embarrassing or shaming you into paying debt. ACI debt collectors can't contact or visit your home at unreasonable times of day. For phone calls, most people would agree that calls before 8 AM are too early and calls after 9 PM are too late. But your circumstances might be different. For example, if you work on a night shift. If you can't take calls at certain times, then tell them. They should keep a record of this to avoid calling you at these times. By the way, for home visits, the regulations say that debt collectors need to clearly explain the purpose and intended outcome of the proposed visit and give you adequate notice of the date and time of a likely visit. You're well within your rights to complain if they keep calling or keep visiting your home at times that you told them to avoid. Next, it's also good to know that they're not allowed to act in a threatening or intimidating way. Also, they should never pressurize you into paying larger installments than you can afford or hitting payment deadlines that are impossible. The regulations say that they are not allowed to pressurize you into selling your home or to take out more credit to pay off debt. Also good to know, ACI debt collectors can't pretend to be bailiffs or enforcement agents. Unlike bailiffs, debt collectors can't force their way into your house or refuse to leave when you ask them to. And they're certainly not allowed to take any of your belongings or clamp your car. Okay, so how long can you be chased for debt? Well, under the UK's Limitation Act of 1980, a creditor has 6 years to chase most unsecured unpaid debts, or 12 years for some mortgage debt. This limitation period starts from the time of your last payment or when you last acknowledged the debt. Ultimately, debt collectors cannot enforce their debts through the courts after those 6 years. But if you've already been taken to court and have a CCJ registered against you, then there's no end date for how long you can be chased. How do I pay less and come to an agreement with ACI debt collectors? Well, there are a number of ways that you might be able to reduce the amount that you pay. If ACI debt collectors are adding interest and charges to your debt, then you could ask them to freeze that to help you get back on track and clear your debts quicker. Debt collectors are more likely to stop or reduce interest and charges if you can prove that you're in financial difficulties. Maybe you could put together a budget that shows your income and essential living costs so that you can clearly demonstrate your position. You can also use that same budget to negotiate reduced payments. Again, for this, you'll need to show why you can't afford higher repayments. So make sure you're clearly showing your income and essential living costs so that you can demonstrate what you can afford. Sometimes debt collectors will only agree to reduce payments for a short period of time, and at the end of this period, they'll want an update on your situation. Other times, they will agree to a much longer repayment time. It will depend on the nature of your debt and your individual circumstances. If you have the cash, you could make a final settlement offer. This is where you ask if they'll let you pay a lump sum instead of the full balance that you owe on the debt. In return for having a lump sum payment, some debt collectors will agree to write off the rest of your debt. These aren't the only options that are available in the UK. There's actually a bunch of them. Some are free to use and others include fees. Each of them have their own pros and their own cons. If you want to learn more about the debt solutions I mentioned, or you want to find out about other debt solutions available in the UK, then we've created a really great form that I'd recommend you check out. Click the link in the description to get started and answer a few multiple choice questions like the total amount of your debt, how many people you owe, your living situation, and a few others, and we'll connect you with one of our trusted partners so you can find out more and take steps towards improving your financial situation.